Hey everybody, this is Chris with GatorsFirst.com. This is going to be a podcast describing a couple of SEC matchups that we've found very interesting this week, as well as a couple of games throughout the top 25. We're going to give our picks. I'm here with Jamie. How you doing, Jamie?
I'm good. Looking forward to an exciting weekend of football in the SEC.
Absolutely. The first game that we're going to talk about in the SEC is Auburn at Ole Miss. Auburn's coming off a bunch of losses in a row, and Ole Miss, they've been shaky. They're the only team to beat us this year. I think that Ole Miss takes this game. It's in Mississippi. It's always a pretty good game of Western Division opponents, so I'm going to take Ole Miss. Jamie?
I think Ole Miss really played their hearts out against us and put forth more effort than, not effort, but they put forth a ton of effort, but they really played above their level, I think. And while Auburn is having an off year, I'm going to take Auburn in this matchup. The next game we're going to talk about is Tennessee against South Carolina. I think both teams expected to be in the thick of the SEC East race this year, and neither one of them is, especially struggling as Tennessee. Um, and I think Tennessee is going to continue struggling against South Carolina's defense, and I'm going to pick SC in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with South Carolina too. I've watched Tennessee a bunch of times, and they really are not good at football. I'm really worried about the South Carolina game here at home, but maybe that's just a little bit worrying about Spurrier in the swamp more than it is anything else. The next game that we got here is Tulsa, the 18th ranked team in the nation. They're undefeated going into Fayetteville to face the Arkansas Razorbacks. I went to Arkansas and saw them firsthand. They got a great running back, but their defense was kind of shaky. Tulsa could put up some points. I've seen them on TV a couple times. I think Tulsa wins this game, and I think it's going to be closer than people might expect, but I think Tulsa wins the game.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a close game as well. I think Arkansas might have played their best game of the year against us. It was really a close game up until the end of the game, but I'm going to have to agree with you and pick Tulsa as well.
All right, we'll go ahead and move to some other games around the top 25. The first one is the big matchup, the one that's stealing college game day from the Florida Georgia game. It's number one Texas at number seven Texas Tech in Lubbock. This, I would have to say, is probably the biggest game that's ever been played at Texas Tech under Mike Leach at Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech comes out, starts throwing the ball all over the field. In the end, I think that they're going to keep it close with the way that they could score. I'm going to say that they pull off the upset. As a Gator fan, I'm hoping that somebody takes care of Texas and Penn State. So I'm going to take Texas Tech.
As a Gators fan, I hope that Texas loses too, but I don't think this is going to be the week. I think Tech is just outmatched. They have a strong passing game, but that's about it. I think Texas takes care of business here and wins by at least two scores. The next game we're going to talk about is what used to be the premier matchup of the Big 12, Oklahoma at Nebraska. Nebraska is actually having a pretty decent year with their only losses coming to Virginia Tech, Missouri, and Texas Tech. But Oklahoma is really having a strong year, and I don't think this game's going to be that close. I think Oklahoma wins big here.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma wins big here too. It's in Oklahoma and Norman, but I think that the next couple of years under Bo Pelini, you might see this start to change gears a little bit and see Nebraska take a game or two away from Oklahoma. I think that they're going to be rebuilding their program and be pretty solid for the next 10 years to come. So I'm just going to still go with Oklahoma. Next game is has one of our rivals in it. Number 15 Florida State at Georgia Tech in Atlanta. Um, Florida State is playing some good football right now. Their only losses to Wake Forest. Um, I'm going to go ahead and take Florida State on the road against a Georgia Tech team that is very up and down. We better hope that they win. It just helps us, makes it a better matchup when we play them later on in the season.
I'm going to go with Florida State as well. Georgia Tech really has been up and down this year. They've played some pretty strong games, but last week they lost to Virginia, who has not been all that great this year. And I think Florida State's been pretty solid this year under Bobby Bowden. and so I'm going to go pick FSU for this game. So the next game we're going to talk about is the Northwestern Wildcats against the Minnesota Golden Gophers. And when Minnesota is really still in the race for the Big Ten championship, you know something's wrong. But they are having a pretty strong season in the weak Big Ten with a record of 7-1. I think they might stumble this week a little bit against Northwestern, who's also been pretty successful this year, but I think that Minnesota will win in a close one.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Minnesota too because it's in Minnesota. That's the only reason. If this game was in Northwestern and Evanston, I think that I would take it uh, Northwestern in that case. But Minnesota has a chance to win out and finish the season 11-1. They were 1-11 last year, and when you could get that big of a turnaround, your conference has some problems. But I'm gonna go ahead and take Minnesota. The next game is also a Big Ten matchup. Again, it pits Wisconsin at Michigan State in East Lansing. Um, Michigan State, I hope that they start winning in some of these games that are pretty big to them because they're probably going to be our last chance of any hope of getting to the national championship game if they play an undefeated Penn State and Texas is still undefeated. So I'm going to be rooting for Michigan State to start playing a lot better. They're number 21 in the nation, playing against a Wisconsin team that really has been uh, a very big disappointment this year. So I'm going to go ahead and take Michigan State at home.
I'm gonna have to agree with you there, Chris. I'm gonna take Michigan State over struggling Wisconsin this year. Wisconsin really has been a disappointment, so I don't think they have a chance. The next game we're going to talk about is our Thursday night game. It's going to be South Florida against Cincinnati. I think South Florida is going to take this one. Cincinnati looked pretty good up until last week with their only loss against Oklahoma, but last week they got blown out by Connecticut, 40-16. So I think there'll be a similar result this week against South Florida. I think South Florida is going to win big in this one.
Yeah, UConn trounced Cincinnati last week, and I was pretty big on Cincinnati earlier in the year. I thought they'd keep it close with Oklahoma, and that didn't happen. South Florida, they've lost a couple of games this year, but at the same time, I think that they have enough talent to go out there and beat Cincinnati. So I'm going to go ahead and take South Florida. I think it's going to be close, though. Next, we have Oregon at number 24. They're going to be visiting Berkeley to take on the Cal Golden Bears. Man, California plays really tough at home. They beat the aforementioned Michigan State team at home to start the season. Oregon seems to play really, really well in these conference games against their big opponents. So I'm not really sure who I'm leaning towards. I think it's going to be a really close game. California is really, really tough at home, but I'm going to take Oregon and a squeaker.
I'm going to agree with you there, Chris. I'm going to take Oregon in a close game against California. Oregon being the only team looking to challenge USC for the Pac-10 title should USC stumble. So I think Oregon's going to take this one in a close game. And our last game for our picks is going to be West Virginia against the Yukon Huskies, who we were just talking about. I think this will also be a pretty close game. I'm going to have to take West Virginia. I think I'm being influenced by last week's result against Auburn. West Virginia beat Auburn 34-17. They've had a pretty good year since their early season letdowns, and I think they have a chance to get back in the picture for one of the bowl games, as they look like they're going to be the Big East champions this year, unless something happens in one of their conference games in the next few weeks.
West Virginia has so many weapons, especially on offense. They still have Pat White and Noel Devine. Noel Devine is like one of the fastest humans on the planet. I want to say that they could put up a ton of points, and I want to say that they could show me that they're a much better team that they've been playing than their record indicates. But UConn, they're just steady. They're a good team at home, especially in these big games. They just kind of just keep it close, and then at the end of the game, they seem to win. So I'm gonna take UConn because I think that UConn could get it done at home against a team in West Virginia that just disappoints me. All right, so for Jamie, this is Chris. We'll be back next week with our picks for Week 11, but for Week 10, that's it. Take care.